Faith in action. Are you taking actionable, measurable steps of faith even when you can't see things in front of you? That's our discussion today on the podcast. Let's jump in. BJ O'Neill here with the Business Coaching Success Podcast. So glad you're here, where I share with you strategies, tools, and tips to be able to grow your business coaching practice to six figures and beyond as a Christian business coach. Let's jump in. Well, welcome. Glad that you are here in this episode of the Business Coaching Success Podcast. Our conversation today is a little bit different approach, not so much different, but a different tone maybe. You could call it very much rooted in Scripture. This is all about the action that we're taking in building our business, in building our business coaching practice, how we're helping clients, and so on. Prayerfully, it'll make sense to you, and we'll go from there. Before we jump into all that, if you are considering starting a business coaching practice, maybe you own a business, maybe you're a CPA, a financial planner, maybe you're, you've got extensive sales and marketing experience, whatever the case may be, and you've been thinking about either A, how to start and maybe a new chapter in life, or how to adopt coaching into the business structure you're already doing, and you're just curious about what we do with our turnkey, done-for-you business coaching system designed specifically for Christian professionals. If that's you, you can go to businesscoachmastery.com. That's businesscoachmastery.com. There's some information there that you can get. We'll give you a couple of videos to watch, a download, if you will, to walk you through. That way you can determine if it's worth learning more about for you or not. If so, you could even have a quick conversation with us. We'll give you a full-blown overview. We'll let you check out some of our tools and let you see them there as well. Okay? Faith in action. I'm going to tell you a personal story in a moment that is an example of what that looks like. That happened to me a few years ago. Longer than that, probably now, 5 or 6 plus years ago. We'll get to that in just a moment. But this whole idea about faith in action, it comes from the chapter in Hebrews of chapter 11. I'm going to walk you through it. And today's tone really is I'm just going to give you some reflection points to things to consider, regardless of where you are on building your business coaching practice. You might be in the very beginning. You may have 4 or 5 clients. You may have had 6 or 7 or 8, and you're down to 6 or 5. Nothing lasts forever, right? There's things that cycle through and things that happen. We'll talk about all of that. But when you look at Hebrews 11, well, let me back up for one thing, for one step. As Christ followers and believers, and if you're a faith-driven individual, we should be faith-driven in all aspects of our life. And we use the Bible as a guide, right? So conversations, relationships, decisions, and so on. It's like, well, if I'm going to do this, what does the Bible say? Like, how does that impact me as a believer? And so when we look from a business perspective, and we'll call it for today like an overarching umbrella, marketplace ministry, if you want to call it that. In other words, how do you bring faith into the marketplace? Well, that's a big conversation to have. Specifically, though, as entrepreneurs and faith-driven business coaches, this is a ballgame where it takes a lot of self-start, right? I mean, it is up to us to get it done every single day. That is, before we take the action to it, we have to have the faith before it. Even when we don't see it happening or understand it or where's this going, how's it going to work, we still take the action. So in Hebrews chapter 11, pretty much the whole chapter. But in summary, you've got, individuals like Abram to Moses to Rahab. And here's what they did. And this is a huge takeaway. This is not one of the points to ponder, but it's just a huge takeaway. They made real life decisions that often went against logic or comfort. Let that sink in just for a moment. They often made real life decisions that went against logic or comfort. Now, I'm not suggesting that you be unprofessional. I'm not suggesting that you be that don't have any plans, that you're just shooting from the hip, winging it, not at all. But when we're building anything, oftentimes we have the faith of what we're going to do turns into what we hope it's going to turn into. And we begin to take action and we move towards that goal, even when we can't see it. And specifically in this passage or chapter, rather, they did this action in the face of adversity. They sacrificed, they endured hardship, because that's what they believed was the right way to do. So they didn't just think about it. And if you look specifically at 11 verse 6, they didn't just talk about trusting God. They took a step out of faith and just lived it and obeyed it and just dealt with what they had to deal with to get to where they wanted to go. And so before we get into the reflection points, I wanted to just throw out to you, in a world where, I mean, let's be honest, in a culture where we want things easy, we want things simple, hard is just not something that's typically embraced, but anything of value is going to be a challenge. I think you probably know that, right? But think about, am I just reading about God's promises? Am I just reading and thinking about and talking about faith, listening to podcasts, videos, going to church, listening to sermons? Oh, that's awesome, whatever. But are you living it out? Now, I've gone through seasons where I've done both, where, lots of reading, lots of consumption. And then I look back and go, man, I really haven't physically taken the action behind what I'm talking about, thinking about, reading about, discussing about, small groups at church or whatever. So, quick story, as an example. So years ago, I don't know, 5, 7 years ago, somewhere around there. First of the year, and as you probably do too, I was putting together the yearly plan, if you will, the income I wanted to increase, the amount of clients that I wanted to have, how I wanted to coach, blah 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 blah. And in that process, I had put together plans of which I wasn't sure how it was going to look. Who would be those clients? Would they say yes? Would coaching them, am I going to fulfill my heart and passion by actually helping them succeed? All that stuff. And so I don't know, 3-6 weeks in, I don't know how long, it was definitely into the year. As I began to take the action, do the work, let's see how this is going to pan out. I wanted to I don't want to use the word scale, but I definitely wanted to grow. And making connections. I'm a huge believer, by the way, in referrals. I think referrals are still by far, it should be obvious, that whole word of mouth, relational equity, it absolutely works. And so I'm out of town on business, and I'm going to use the word random, but again, when you're praying about something and you're asking God's guidance, you're putting faith into action, I don't believe in randomness. So I won't use that word. It felt random in the moment because it was not a part of what I was actually doing. So here I'm over here working, making connections, coffees, lunches, workshops, doing the whole thing. And then one day I'm out of town and I get a message through Facebook Messenger from someone that I really didn't know. I knew who they were, met them maybe once. They knew who I was, we had a connection. But beyond that, zero relationship. And the message said, and in summary, hey, wanted to reach out to you. I have a couple of business partners. We're having some challenges in the business. We want to grow, whatever. And we really need some guidance and some help. Would you be open to a conversation? So here's the interesting thing about that. Here I am building a plan. I don't know how it's going to come together. I don't know who it's going to be. I'm doing the work, planting the seeds, having actual conversations, doing the like in our done for you system that all of our coaches, myself included, use to build relationships with business owners. We use a really cool high profile assessments on showing what profitability could look like with just a few strategies in the business. Okay, so that I'm doing the work. And all of a sudden I get a message that was not I wasn't interacting with this individual. And for BJ, now you may not agree with this or see it this way, and that's fine. I do believe that is the effects of what I call, breadcrumbs, if you will. In other words, God's dropping those little crumbs going, I got you. And because I would not have been able to have pointed to this conversation the way that I did if it had been somebody that I was specifically interacting with through my network. This came outside of that network in terms of who I've been interacting with. We met, they had a partner, and the bottom line is they ended up being a client for 3 to 4 years. We did some crazy things. And so I am a living proof that when you follow through and do the work, you're going to see some really cool things happen that God's going to bless you with. Here's the 3 things I want to just leave with you today to reflect on, okay? 1, all right, you ready? Where's God asking you to step out in faith? And now we're talking about business building. If you're looking to build that business coaching practice, where do you feel that nudge? Where do you feel that urge to step out? So what does that look like potentially? Let's put it in practical terms of building the business. Let's say that you're in the very beginning, you're just starting out. Well, that could look out where you feel the urging on how you're going to interact with individuals to eventually make a presentation or an invitation to go to, like in our case, to go to an assessment where you're going to make a formal invitation to work together. All right. You may feel that urging in that, but you're hesitant. It just keeps kind of nagging at you. If you are praying about it. Now, if you're not praying about it, maybe it's not that. But if you're praying about it, you're asking for God's guidance, and you're feeling these urges and these nudges, I would argue that, hey, you may need to consider, is this God kind of leading you? It doesn't mean it's going to be simple. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's not going to be clunky. Because life's full of challenges. I don't care what journey that you're on, beginning, in the middle, scaling, and doing really, really well, you're still going to have significant challenges because that's just the fallen world that we live in. So that's one thing I want you to ponder. Ask that question. Begin to pray about, where's God asking me to step out in faith in building this business coaching business? Regardless if you're brand new, you got 5 clients, you got 10 clients, where's God asking you to step out in faith? Even if the path ahead is not clear. That's fun, isn't it? Stepping out in faith when there is no clear path. A friend of mine has a term. He trains people how to become speakers, and we'll connect every now and then. I'm like, hey man, how's it going? Making it up as I go is the answer. Now he's being somewhat facetious, but there's some truth to that, because in our line of work, we can be nimble. We're not working in a Fortune 500 scenario where there's a lot of voices speaking into a decision. It takes it's arduous. No, we can make a decision to make a change today. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's not so good because you can change the wrong thing too much. But the point is, as you're working through the problem and the growth challenge, where's he asking you to step out in faith, even if the path is not clear? Second thing I want you to ponder. Are you waiting until everything makes sense before you take the step? Are you waiting until everything makes sense before you take a step and obey what you feel is God calling you to move in that direction? Now, I've been incredibly susceptible to this over the years, because it's, when you take a step, there's fear. There's trembling, and you hesitate. And hesitation is one of the biggest reasons why coaches fail. They hesitate. They'll convince themselves that they're doing the right things, but they're really not. They're hesitating on taking action even when the path is not clear. Fun, isn't it? But are you waiting? I'm a big believer in taking imperfect action to a solid plan. 𝗔𝗶𝗀𝘁, I said this in our episode last week. I had a chance to be in a room about 10 people, and 𝗔𝗶𝗀𝘁, the founder and owner of the 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗲 bananas. And he laid out how bad everything went on all the stuff that they did first. And I won't go into the detail for today, but all these different things that they did, he talked about just how horrible they were the first time that they did them until they had them fairly perfected. That should give you and I some ability to let off some, take a strong exhale, because we know that, look, I don't need it to be perfect, and I don't need it to make sense, at least the first time out. Because as you go do, you learn, you implement, you get better, and you grow. Third thing I want you to ponder. Third and final thing. What would it look like to take action based upon God's urging, not what you can see? I believe God wants the best for you. I believe God wants the best for me. I think some people misconstrue that, and when the challenges show up, when I'm not being able to get the answers, people are saying no, we assume that, well, it's just not working out. Or I would make the argument to put before you, maybe that's his plan to grow you. A rubber band is only good in its use when it's stretched. Just think about that. So how about we stop wanting it all to be perfect? And I'm preaching to the choir, by the way. I'm a big believer in goal setting, goal planning. And when I'm not on track, I get irritated, because that's the carnal part. And here's when you know that you're off track, is when you're getting super frustrated that it's not working out. That means, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really leaning on my faith in God, on the direction I'm going, because I'm wanting it to work out and look like what it is that I feel like it should look like, versus saying, solid plan, going to keep working it. I am believing it's going to get where it's going to go. It probably won't look like what I envision, because I can't see it, because I'm not the one doing it. He is. There you go. 3 things to ponder. I'm going to leave that to you to wrestle with. If you're not wrestling with it, I would just urge you to get serious and raw with you. And if you have a accountability partner, a friend, whatever, that you would trust in this as well, maybe that's something to discuss. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. But it's like, if you're going to be a Christ follower and build things, in this case businesses, and in our case obviously business coaching practice, it's not hyperbole. Like, you got to actually just do it and follow along with it and let it be gritty. I didn't say unprofessional. I didn't say where it just looks discombobulated. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying that God uses, look, when you read the Bible, God uses the most imperfect people every time. He uses the most unchosen. The whole David and Goliath story is a great one, right? And I think that that's still happening today. I'm living proof of that. No means am I compared to anyone in the Bible. My point is, I didn't go to college. I didn't have some formal education. I through grit and just a constant, keeping the foot on the gas pedal over the last 30 plus years, God's still using me to help others grow, to succeed, to grow profitability, to grow in their leadership, to grow in their culture with their businesses, their teams. And today we get the fun opportunity to help those who've been in business environments to grow business coaching practices. That's what influence really is. And that's what I believe, that if you feel God's got you there too, I want to invite you in that process as well. Take bold action. You don't have to have it all figured out. You will as you go. God will show you and reveal it to you. I do believe. I'm a living proof of that. Other friends of mine in the space are as well. All right? Hope that message influences you today. I hope that message adds value to you today. But more importantly, don't just think about it. Don't just ponder it. Don't just process it. Take action. Put your faith into action. And I do believe the best things are in store for you. All right? Until next time, take care.